No, I've been like you, man. I've been like busy with everything in life lately, so I haven't been able to post in months. But I'm working on a lot of stuff to drop around draft time. It's funny, Clan actually, he was in town this weekend and came by and stayed at my place, and we were hanging out. We were talking about you and like your channel and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, just kind of chilling. Trying to get a bunch of draft videos ready to drop so they're ready for draft
Yeah.
season. Get a bunch of my rants out of the way so that I'm ready for all of the inevitable bad takes come rolling in come draft day. So I'm ready, man. See, I don't know. See, that's where people overreact to the tournament so much.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm a former employee of UNC. I've always been a fan of them. My parents went there, so like me, every year I pick UNC to go all the way
Yeah.
in at least one of my brackets. That's paid off so far. I wasn't sold on Gonzaga just because their guard play wasn't good. But the thing is, I don't think it has anything to do with Holmgren. I'll start off
Yeah.
with that. Is like that's a lot of these things people kind of overreact to college a little bit. The first thing about Holmgren is I'm getting so sick of seeing the he's too thin argument. I'm like, this guy has now played at the highest level of basketball possible at every stage in his age. He hasn't had any major injuries. He's been productive at each one. I'm like, why am I supposed to believe that this is a thing now? I mean, we've this is an argument that's age old. We heard it with Durant because he couldn't bench a whole lot. We heard it with Andrew Wiggins coming in.
Yeah.
We've heard it with, I mean, Kristaps Porzingis. We heard, oh, he's rail thin. We heard it with Alexei Pokashevsky just 2 years ago, and now, he's not great, but he's starting to come around and stuff. And we heard it with Bol, but the difference was he'd had a chronic injury history, and Holmgren hasn't. And frankly, Gonzaga kind of used Holmgren in like a PJ Tucker role. Like he's there to get stops, occasionally catch and shoot a three, and like the games where Drew Timmy was off and Hunter Salas remains on the bench, and I can't even think of the other guy's name. Oh God, I've gone blank. But Nimbard, whenever he's off, they let Holmgren cook, and those were games where he'd finish with these crazy double doubles. And frankly, I think his first tournament game, yes, it was against terrible competition, but he had like 17 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists, and like 8 blocks. Who else is going to put up that stat line?
It's like I remember if you remember whenever he had his college debut and you tweeted at me, I made that video and I was like, I said in the video, I was like, everybody's gonna say that, oh, he had these stats because it was a crappy team, and then I said in the video, I was like, well, are you guys still gonna be saying that whenever he plays UT, whenever he plays Baylor or whoever? I was like naming a bunch of schools in their upcoming schedule, and we saw that in the tournament. He's having seven blocks a game, 8 blocks a game, 9 blocks a game, and I see again that argument. He's too skinny. It's like he's not getting that many points, but that's sort of his role, is to not get points. It's to play defense. He's getting huge rebounds, he's getting blocks, and I see a bunch of people on my side that are like, well, like you said, like, well, Durant was always called skinny, and then they always fire back with, there's only one Kevin Durant, man. But I really think that he has the potential to even become like defensive player of the year whenever he's in the NBA, if he keeps these crazy block numbers up. Because have we ever seen anybody in the NBA average like more blocks than points, like double-digit blocks for a season? Or
Yeah, I don't think we have. And like, to that point, I don't know if he will, but like one thing I bring up too, I just said he had weak competition his first round, but I mean, he played Memphis and he matched up against Jalen Duren, who's for all intents and purposes a lottery pick. And that's a guy who's 18, reclassified to play, is a brute force guy, and he has like 55 to 60 pounds on Holmgren.
Yeah.
And what I hated was there kept being the video clip getting shared around. It was Duren backing him down and Holmgren hitting the floor, and then Duren throws down this vicious dunk while Holmgren's laying there.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, see, he can't handle him. I'm like, well, one, Holmgren flopped like crazy on that play trying to get the call. He should have stood his ground. It was terrible flop. And in fact, after that play, the Gonzaga bench was warned by the official, like, stop the flopping or else I'm going to call a technical on you.
Yeah.
2, he dominated Jalen Duren all game. Duren's first 3 possessions under the basket were like insane blocks by Holmgren. Like, I think one of them he tried like a little turnaround hook. He sent it straight back in his face. Duren got the rebound. Then he tried to go up and under the basket, and Holmgren blocks it with his offhand. And then the next time down, he tried to straight dunk on him, and he blocked it again. I'm like, he handled him all game.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know. I'm rambling, but I can't stand this narrative that, you know, let's wait till he gets to the NBA and sucks and is too thin before we say that. It's just seems like kind of an invalid concern, especially with the way the modern league is.
Yeah, you don't gotta apologize for rambling, man. That's the whole point of this. But yeah, I was gonna talk about like Jalen Duren in the Memphis game, but I want to talk more about Gonzaga and Chet Holmgren first, and then lead that into his game versus Memphis and everything. I think that Chet Holmgren again has and people are gonna say this is crazy, but I think that Chet Holmgren, if he keeps these sort of numbers up, which obviously is going to be very difficult because there is a huge difference in that college to NBA jump, but if he's playing as well defensively in the NBA as he is now, it's going to be a huge. He will, if he does that, he's going to cause a huge shift in the NBA. And what I mean by that, before people start going off like, are you saying that Chet Holmgren's going to, you know, be a staple in the NBA and all that? But what I mean is, ever since Steph Curry got drafted, and I've talked about this multiple times, ever since Steph Curry got drafted, and it started a little bit with Kobe too, we saw this shift into a more offensive game. Who can score more, the fastest, the best, you know, screw blocks and steals. We want people that can get behind the arc. And recently, these past 2 years, the 2021 and the 2022 season, we've seen more of a shift to the importance of big men again in order to sort of space the floor. And then you've talked about international players coming in and that sort of thing. And we've seen, especially with the Cavs, which, again, you've talked about, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I've made a video about, the Cleveland Cavaliers are sort of pushing the narrative back and doing a 180 to push it back towards defense, which is what the Spurs did to win their championships. And now I don't know what they are now, but they've been 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever they are now, the Cavaliers. And I feel like Holmgren is going to help sort of accelerate that. Where his game is fully defensive, and wherever he gets drafted, we're gonna see that defensive game, and I think that's going to accelerate the 180 of the NBA, where it starts going back towards that defense again that it used to be, that it hasn't been for a while now.
Yeah, definitely, and I'll even one up that statement. Like, we're talking about the Spurs and Warriors, and I mean, if you go back to like 2013, 2014. San Antonio's looking at how Dallas beat Miami. And granted, we didn't have Dirk Nowitzki, who was insane in that series, but the Mavs did a really good job at spreading the heat out, you know, using some clever passes to the interior for Tyson Chandler, letting Dirk kind of cook on the perimeter. They had a distributing point guard who could, you know, hit threes from a standstill. They had an athletic slasher. And that's the kind of team we put together. We just put... I say we because obviously I'm a Spurs fan, but you know, San Antonio put together the ultimate two-way team. I mean, you've got Tony Parker, who's a great scorer, slasher, dribbler, creator. I mean, you've got Danny Green, who's by the numbers arguably one of the best role players of all time, just with his ability to knock the three down, play transition D, you know, play team defense. And just affect the game in minimal minutes. Then we had Kawhi Leonard, who wasn't quite a superstar yet, but there's that athletic rim runner who can knock down an occasional three, take guys one-on-one. We have Boris Diaw, who's an outside-inside threat, a passer, and then Duncan, who's like the anchor inside. And if you look at these teams that are now succeeding, they're very closely modeled after those Mavs, Spurs, and Warriors teams from that early 2010s phase. And like the Warriors team won the next year. It looked really good. I mean, you look, Steph Curry's running all over the place, scoring like Tony Parker. Granted, he's a better shooter, way better. But I mean, Klay Thompson, he's a much better 3-and-D wing than Danny Green, but it's the similar style. And then, they had Harrison Barnes in there, who's that athletic rim runner who can hit a three, hit a mid-range shot. Draymond Green being that inside-outside guy who passes really well. And then they had Andrew Bogut as that defensive anchor. I mean, it's the same purpose that the Spurs had with their teams, and that's what kept winning. And now we're seeing this trend towards they want players to be able to do multiple things at a position. I mean, back in 2003, I think Jalen Duren would have been like top 3 pick, easy. And like Alperen Şengün last year, I think would have been like a top 3 pick in the early 2000s because he's a scoring machine in the paint. Can't play defense that well, but they didn't care then. Jalen Duren's similar to Dwight Howard. He's athletic. He blocks shots. Let's take him. But nowadays, you got to be able to do more. And frankly, going back to Holmgren, if you look at his game log, there was only one game this year where he didn't record a single block. And that was a game he played 24 minutes. He had 9.7 rebounds. Just wasn't, on his game. Every single other game, he's recording like 3 blocks, 4 blocks. I mean, there are more games that he's recorded 4 blocks a game than there are games where he recorded a single block.
Exactly.
I mean, there's games with 6 and 7, and these games where he's doing that, he's scoring like 16 to 20 points and grabbing 8 to 12 rebounds in most of them. And if you can find another 7-foot guy, albeit his weight, who can score 15 points a game and get you 10 rebounds a game, all while blocking 3 to 4 shots a game and shooting 40% from beyond the arc, I'll give you my paycheck for the month because that is not common.
Yeah, I think I was about to say I think Gonzaga's biggest problem. I think he might as well be the team at this point, him and Timmy. I think Chet Holmgren's biggest issue, and I think this is pretty obvious, because of his height, is foul trouble. And, people could say, well, they're playing more intense because, it's March Madness, it's the tournament. But I feel like every single game that he has played in March Madness, he has fouled out, or at least had 4. Like the Memphis game, he fouled out. And I don't remember how many fouls he had in the games before that, but I know in the Arkansas game, I think he either fouled out or he had 4 again.
Yeah, he fouled out the last 2 games. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, but that's something that is not really. Trying to think of how to phrase this. It's not really something he can work on. It's going to be hard to practice not drawing fouls because it's just something that comes with that height. It's like he stands there and somebody jumps and his hand is going to somehow hit the other person's arm and it's going to be called a foul when all he does is this. It's just something that comes with the territory of being that height.
Honestly, I'm glad you brought that up too, because one thing that's been thrown into the light with this March Madness, I don't know if you saw the UNC Baylor game by chance.
I didn't see it, but I was going to bring it up because I'm from Texas and you're obviously UNC, so.
Yeah, no, I'm a UNC fan, but I'm pretty even keeled when it comes to watching games. My friends would always laugh because I'd be working Carolina basketball games and I'd be in the stadium and they'd call a foul and all these people are like, "Oh, that was BS." I was like, I mean, you could hear the slap from here. Like, it was a good call. But and some of those I didn't have problems with every call in that game, but I think that game threw into light. I mean, it seemed like things got a little chippy and all of a sudden the officials decided they were going to make themselves present in the game. And that's what I didn't really like, was it just felt like credit to Baylor, they came back. They did a great job of coming back. And you have to, if you're North Carolina, you have to play the cards you're dealt. And they did, and they ended up coming away with the game. But I think what's frustrated me so much there is just there's so much lack of consistency in collegiate officiating, and we're seeing that with Holmgren. I know a lot of people had problems last night with his last two fouls. They're like, well, what the hell were those? They were terrible calls, and I'll admit the last two calls weren't great on him. And stuff, but I think it's going to help. One thing that they need to talk about in the college game is giving them an extra foul, in switching it to 6 fouls instead of 5. So having that additional foul will help. In terms of how the NBA officials call the game in the paint, although they've reverted a little bit this season, they're doing a much better job and giving benefit of the doubt and stuff like that. And they're going to allow inherently a little bit more contact. And then third, the college charge rules are all over the place.
Yeah.
They're much better defined in the NBA. And I mean, in college, if somebody jumps in the air and you jump under them, you really have no idea if they're going to call a block or a charge. In the NBA, that's automatically a block because you have to be set before the guy takes off. So I think he's going to benefit from there. But you're right. I mean, the only thing with him is just knowing when to be careful about his fouls, because he's only fouled out, I think, like 4 times this season.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people who's very much like, okay, if you go through a game with 0 fouls, what are you doing? Like, you have 5 for a reason.
Yeah.
Let's, at least let's prevent some easy buckets and stuff that don't hurt anybody. But like, you got him, you can use them. But it's these games where he'll get careless in the first half. And
don't pull a Zaza, but be aggressive.
Yeah, like make sure the guy misses a shot. Don't break his arm. But but like, there were so many of these games where he'd get 3 in the first half and get pulled from the game early, and then the other team would catch up, and then they'd adjust at the half, and he'd come out and look much more poised, and he'd stay in the rest of the game. And if he just keeps that poise the whole game, I think you're right. That's what he needs to work on, just knowing when to be careful and when not. But I think it's more of an indictment in collegiate officiating than it is on his play style.